So our young people are learning about relationships online, which is a very skewed, like reality of how relationships learn and work in a sense, and that's development like negatively impacting our young adults. And so it's really interesting. I've been thinking a lot about this idea of like that we all know the rise of autism has gone up. Is it because we're more
Mhm,
attuned to
mhm,
diagnosis? Is it related to something going
mhm,
on with like genetics, whatever? But I think what's happening
mhm,
too is that we're seeing a lot of people who are growing up delayed socially, and they're appearing to be
mhm.
autistic because of a lack of social development. And so I think that there's an interesting question to be vague is that like are people being a little bit easier diagnosed and they're maybe not really autistic, they're just very socially delayed because of like how things are being developed socially from
Sure,
an online
sure.
community.
Welcome, everybody, to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Miller. I'm so excited to have Dr. Jack Hinman with me today, who is the founder and owner of Engage Young Adult Transitions. Jack is a licensed psychologist who has been an OG in the game for over 20 years now, has been doing mental health treatment at so many different settings, right? Wilderness hospitals, you name it. Obviously, we'll give certainly Jack an opportunity to talk about Engage in Young Adult Transitions as well. But today we're going to talk primarily about community and the role it plays in supporting young adults and why potentially, right, young adults are struggling so much around building that support system, that for those friendships, and how, of course, Engage is using that, right, to help young adults get out of that whole failing to launch and step fully into adulthood and just become their best selves. So thank you so much, Jack, for joining us today. Really excited for us to get into this. Did I
Yeah, I'm
miss
totally
anything in the
stoked.
bio, by the way?
No, not at all. No, like yeah, I just imagine my wife listening to your intro. She just like, oh my gosh, knock it off. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. But no, I'm totally stoked about like reconnecting with you. Yeah, we talked about friendship before and the role of friendship in our lives, and then the kind of the crisis in connection that young people are experiencing. So I could talk about friendship all day. Literally this morning, my phone was getting blown up by different text groups I'm in with all my buddies. I've got
Mm,
like high school buddies, I've got college buddies, I've got buddies from like my professional life, I guess you would say. And of course, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be on a podcast about talking about friendship, and they start just
mhm,
hazing me and
mhm,
teasing me, which is great.
mhm,
And I'd love to even talk
mhm,
about the role of teasing versus bullying. Like people kind of like in the role of
mhm,
teasing is actually super healthy in friendship, and how young
mhm,
adults misunderstand the concept of teasing. They kind of think it's bullying. It's not. And
mhm,
teasing has actually been
mhm,
demonstrated to indicate a
mhm.
really good factor. So I'm ready to talk about friendship, the role of friendship. And so let's buckle in, man. I'm ready to
No,
go.
that's awesome. Well, I mean, I love even where you started out, like the whole perceptual filter of teasing versus bullying. I agree with you. I think that, and again, of course, at the end, I'll give you an opportunity to talk specifically about Engage and what y'all do, and you do it so well. Because I know at Engage, there is a good percentage of your young adults are neurodivergent or potentially,
Mhm.
on the spectrum. And so I would imagine that teasing versus bullying is even further promulgated, right? If we're talking
Mhm.
about someone who's neurodivergent, who might be kind of cognitively maybe inflexible or maybe taking things
Mhm.
super literally. So talk a little bit about that. I mean, how do you see that showing up
Yeah,
with
100%.
young people and
Yeah, like
potentially, yeah.
where like one's on like neurotype, like definitely
Hmm.
like impacts the way we perceive information. And yeah, a very classic kind of like struggle for people who are in that neurodivergent space is black and white thinking, kind of like the literal truth. And like even like we talk about how folks who fall in that space have trouble like saying a white lie. I mean, white lies are actually very
Hmm.
healthy in relationships. And like,
Hmm.
do I look
Hmm.
good in this dress? Like, you probably
Hmm.
need to
Yeah.
tell me I look good in this dress. And
Right.
like, and
Right.
so that's just part of navigating. I mean, think about it. We're such dynamic people, and the variables in that, and navigating that, and understanding that. And so the reality is that like, young people are growing up on like in an online world, and they're not getting the experiences of being in person that they need to navigate teasing or bullying. Because you think about it, like texting and online communication, the communication is so lost in the online process. So, and they don't pick up on the skills and know how to navigate teasing versus bullying.
hmm
So,
hmm hmm I think that's, and I think also so much is lost as, we're going to sound like two old people here, but so much is lost, right, on social media, texting, snapping, what have you, that I think when you're in that social group, right, and you see someone's facial expressions and you see in real time, right, whether they threw in they didn't have to put in the laugh emoji because they actually laughed, right, after they were saying that, and then they give you a hug or they give you, a fist bump or something. That I think makes things even that much harder. And I was just reading a thing the other day, which is kind of scary, and I don't have all the research here, but they're basically, the article in essence was saying that folks that, and I'm not anti-Botox, don't cancel me here, Botox community, but basically they were saying people that have a lot of Botox, the part of our brain that is actually in response, to those facial muscles is actually
mhm,
now having a deleterious impact on their social emotional reciprocity, which is like not
mhm.
not so crazy if you think about it, because again, seeing the face and learning in real time. So what do you think is like one of the major barriers right now that you see young people struggling with around why are they not able to organically build relationships and friendships like maybe the previous generation?
Yeah, and there's lots of variables in that, and so one piece is that we're moving from a play-based childhood developmental experience
Mm-hmm.
to a phone-based
Mm-hmm.
experience. And
Mm-hmm.
so where like it starts off at a very early age about how to connect and build relationships. So young like so kids, younger kids are not having an experience of actually meeting in person on the playground and different avenues. They're meeting online, and that's significantly delaying their ability to like navigate relationships. So you think about it, like the barrier of entry into online relationships are very easy. I can
Mm-hmm.
be
Mm-hmm.
a 10-year-old. I can pretend to be a 10-year-old, or I can pretend to be an 80-year
Mm-hmm.
old, or I can pretend to be a woman or a man or whatever I
Mm-hmm.
want to be. And I don't have to have
Mm-hmm.
any skill set to
Mm-hmm.
get into some online community on a Discord group. And then if I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking and I say something that relatively offends somebody, they can just boot me out of that group. So the barrier entry is really low and the
Mm-hmm.
barrier of exit is very high.
Mm-hmm.
But with online, like in-person
Mm-hmm.
relationships at the playground, I got to learn how to play cops and robbers. I got to learn how to do like play like I know how to
Mm-hmm.
maybe have to throw a baseball. I got to learn how to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got to learn how to ride a bike if I
Mm-hmm.
want to ride with my buddies in the neighborhood. And so the barrier of entry is
Mm-hmm.
a lot higher, and so skill development is in that. And so the
Mm-hmm.
thing is like so our young people are learning about relationships online, which is a very skewed like reality of how relationships learn and work in a sense. And that's development like negatively impacting our young adults. And so it's really interesting. I've been thinking a lot about this idea of like that we all know the rise of autism is gone up. Is it because we're more
Mm-hmm.
attuned to
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis? Is it related to something going
Mm-hmm.
on with like genetics, whatever? But I think what's happening
Mm-hmm.
too is that we're seeing a lot of people who are growing up delayed socially, and they're appearing to be
Mm-hmm.
autistic because of a lack of social development. And so I think that there's an interesting question to be begged is that like are people being a little bit easier diagnosed and they're maybe not really autistic, they're just very socially delayed because of like how things are being developed socially from
Sure.
an online
Sure.
community.
No, I think that's a great point. I mean, just yesterday, a Four Peaks parents client that I'm working with, their son definitely, we talked about kind of, are they on the spectrum? Can they see the spectrum? Are they straddling the spectrum? And I talked a lot about how their young adult does really well when they understand the rules, right? And so it's like structured versus free play, sort of like what you're talking about,
Mhm.
cops and robbers, if you will. It can be very hard for someone, right, that is just going to, let's say, the cafeteria. The cafeteria is always going to be a challenging place with all
Mhm.
the bells and whistles, all the external stimuli for any child, a child with social anxiety, ADHD, a kid that's neurodivergent. But in general, basically what you're saying is those skills from young adult, not even young adult, from childhood, the initiate the learning. I have to throw the football. I might have to understand, I have to be okay to fail forward. They compound. And if you didn't
Mhm.
have those, because again, you're entering a world, like you said, with a low barrier of entry and then immediately a quick exit, there isn't much of an internalizing
Mhm.
and then generalizing proposition there. And so I think that's very true that a lot of young adults struggle, particularly outside of college, right? Because, hey, I've been going through these similar parallel experiences that give me a frame of reference. I was on the sports team, I was doing part of the
Mhm.
theater group or the whatever it is, the debate club or Dungeons and Dragons club, and now I'm out of college or I'm out of high school or I'm out of whatever.
Mhm.
It's very hard. And I'm sure you're seeing, and again, that's a great thing that Engage does is really leverages, right, that the milieu you have and creates a deep level of community with the young people there. And there's many things that you offer, of course, but that is a huge vehicle. So are you seeing young people struggle again with a lack of clear design, let's say, where it's free, let's say social, not free, but less organized
Mhm.
socialization versus more structured? Do you think that also accounts for why young people are struggling and there is a failure to launch and friendships
Yeah,
are,
100%.
hard to
Where,
come across? Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of scaffolding that is occurring when you're younger and when you're in high school. I think it also like scaffolding from like the school when it comes to social
Sure.
interaction and connection, and then also parents provide tons of scaffolding too about the social interaction. And a lot of parents we work with and young adults that go from like from high school to like or looking at going to college is that they're noticing they've done like there's tons of scaffolding that are occurring. And when you start removing the scaffolding from the parents,
Hmm.
start removing the scaffolding from high
Hmm.
school, then it becomes very apparent how the struggles and the deficits that young person has when it comes socially, but also from an independent standpoint. Parents are really blown away with the amount of things they are not aware of what they're doing for their adult child. And that becomes
Hmm.
very apparent
Hmm.
when they try to make that step forward to go to college. And they just didn't realize it. It
Hmm.
was just kind of like this part of their own development around that. And so,
Sure.
yeah, so you have the scaffolding, you have the neurodiversity piece, and also too where like walking into a cafeteria is
Hmm.
anxiety provoking for
Hmm.
anybody, even if you're the star quarterback,
Yeah.
homecoming king of your high school. You're still anxious because you show up like what table I'm going to sit at. It like
Hmm.
anxiety is part of the normal process. And
Hmm.
another issue
Hmm.
too is that we're pathologicalizing anxiety, a very normal anxiety. There's this concept of creep around addiction and
Preach, 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 Jack,
yeah, go
preach.
for it. Yeah, yeah. What are you thinking? What are you thinking, Thomas, about the concept of
No, no, no,
anxiety?
yo, keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
No, keep going. I'm affirming because don't even get me started, but keep going. I love it. Keep going. Please, you're doing
Yeah,
great.
so the reality is that so you have social developmental delay, you have lack of resiliency around the around anxiety, and anything anxious is bad. Like something that's
Mm-hmm.
like painful is bad. Something that's anxious is bad.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of labeled that in the reality.
Mm-hmm.
And you think
Mm-hmm.
about like where for you like we learn experientially, and when you
Mm-hmm.
are learning something, when two neurons are like connecting or developing a thicker like connection, you're going to feel anxiety. And so part of growth, part of learning, part is all. And so what happens is that kids are taught at a very early age that I can't feel anxiety, and that is being like
Right.
reinforced through their whole
Right.
development. So they don't have the skills, they don't have the resiliency, and of course, and so when they walk into a cafeteria or they try to start a conversation with somebody, they don't have the coping around that from both angles of that. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's the disservice we're doing our kids is allowing them to feel anxiety and making it very
Yep.
pathological.
I think that's so spot on. I hope all the Four Peaks parents, listeners are hearing that, that it is okay, right, for your children to feel uncomfortable. In fact, there's gifts there. And our job often as parents is to stretch their emotional tolerance, right? The second peak of the Four Peaks program is called Emotional Mastery, which is where I help parents first and foremost go in and feel and stretch like a rubber band themselves
Mhm.
before they try to go and make contact with their child, because more often than not, they could be doing what you just said, which is potentially trying to paper over or ointment over or remove the
Mhm.
child from that difficulty, when in fact, if they could stay in that stasis, right, it would burn off. It's kind of like, I always use the analogy that when our kids were from, the Berkshires of Mass, so a little more crunchy than where we live now. And our kids, if they had a temp, we would let them cook. I'm not saying, 105, because that's like, potentially brain damage, but we would let them cook. We were not giving them meds at 101 or even 102. We were letting them get to about 103 because the body was
Mhm.
heating up the temperature was attempt to kill the virus. And so
Mhm.
what's happening is, if you're not able to remain hot, if you will, a little uncomfortable, you're only incubating the virus, right? And the virus in this analogy is not having that ability to have emotional range or affective tolerance or any of these psychobabble words, which just ostensibly means a child that has good emotional bandwidth. And then they're telling themselves a story that they're bad. They're bad on two fronts. They're bad because they feel the anxiety, as you posited, which was spot on, or they're bad because they don't know what to do with it, right? When in fact, it's just the precursor to the skill. And I think if you
Mhm.
think about where imposter syndrome comes from, so much of imposter syndrome that I see with young adults is, I always say there's two things going on here. You're either over purporting your skill set, and you're just basically over promising and under delivering because you're trying to, in a compensatory fashion, state you have X, Y, and Z skills, or you just haven't figured out what are the skills you need to hack, right? And if we could just bring down maybe what we're presenting as an edifice or on the front end, and we could just figure out foundationally, okay, what maybe do we need? Then we're kind of more even, right? We're not imbalanced. So I think that's so brilliant that parents really need to let their kids learn how to feel uncomfortable, right? And learn how to feel
Totally
that
aware.
in a, of course, intentional, regulated way. And then if we're
Mhm.
feeling it and doing a better job modeling it, now we can create co-regulation. And now that's a win-win, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because reality is that for oh yeah, this kind of reminds me when like the first week or two my son went off to college, he came home for the first day. He was like around 11. He didn't get home till like around like midnight. So like that's
Mm-hmm.
past like old man time.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
already like, I got up and I'm like greeting my son, and he just comes into our house and just breaks down and starts bawling and crying
Mm,
about missing
mm,
home, and this how it's so hard not knowing anybody and his roommates,
mm,
and just
mm-hmm.
out of like being tired, I didn't get into it with him. I just sat there and
Right.
hugged him, let him cry, and
Yeah.
I'd say, "Hey, like if you're ready, we could talk about this tomorrow." And by purely being tired and needing my own sleep, I did the
Mm-hmm.
right thing by just allowing this to
You
cry and
did.
give him a hug,
Yeah.
and not trying to problem solve it or get him out of it. And just let him like just emote around feeling sadness, around the idea of loss of being at home and everything else. And yeah, so the thing as parents, like we don't have tolerance to be able to tolerate our kids' anxiety. And the thing is like is
Mm-hmm.
allowing our kids to experience what they're feeling. Because when you allow them to sit in their stuff, then they start developing confidence of sitting in their stuff. They're going to be okay. Like I'm okay about
Mm-hmm.
that. And so
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that parents just don't allow our
Mm-hmm.
kids to be in that, and they tolerate, like, just allow them to develop the tolerance on that. And that's the big issue around that. And plus, we have like smartphones and everything else that are like our
Mm-hmm.
little things that try to soothe ourselves that are so unhealthy, and just sitting in that. Like I saw a
Mm-hmm.
really funny little like TikTok video about mindfulness. Like we didn't talk about mindfulness, Thomas, when we were kids. It were like when we're
No,
on
no.
on the shitter sitting on the toilet, we were mindful.
Right.
We just sat
Right.
there and went to the bathroom,
We
or like
just
he talks about
we actually
just sat
moved.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Or
Yeah.
when I was on a bus,
Yeah.
there was no, like, I just looked out the window. Like, there's no, like, it's
Yeah.
funny how the concept of we need mindfulness, we were just had to be mindful when we didn't
Well,
have a freaking little, like, yeah, go ahead.
totally.
Yeah.
No, no, it cracks me up when I see, and again, I'm not going to say which places, but it cracks me up when they're like, we have forest bathing as an activity. And I'm like, you mean walking in the woods? Like, like
Yeah.
I've seen like
Yeah.
programs that are like, oh, we do forest bathing. And then when you actually chunk down what forest bathing is, it's walking in the woods, you know what
Mhm.
I mean? Without a device, without the, so
Oh,
no, I feel you.
so
I love the piece about, I just want to compliment you. And it's so funny how sometimes when I'm exhausted and energy depleted, I am not energy efficient. I go the other way because I'm a masochist. I'm like, oh no, we're getting into this, you know, and I go, and that's when I'm dysregulated and I'm trying to take down, you know, a pattern of behavior that's emergent with my kids. And I should have just taken it offline. Trust me, I don't do that every time, thank God. But there are definitely times that when I'm wiped, I almost like rally from this endorphin level. So what I love there, which I talk to the families about all the time, STFD, slow the fudge down. I talk all the time to my families in the program about taking something offline, not getting split. And the fact that you had very little in the tank forced you to actually be really, really actually connected to his
mhm,
experience because you knew you couldn't band aid, you couldn't solve, you couldn't rescue, you couldn't fix, and you just witnessed and accompanied him. And that, like you said, was the right intervention, right?
mhm,
Because you witnessed and then you offered when you could be more emotionally available another time. And guess what? By that time you're available, his issue has burned off, which always happens, right? Like you're never going to be in synchronicity, right, with your kid. So sometimes our timing is just we have to be okay with that. But that's brilliant.
mhm,
I'm curious what you see that maybe could be a word to the wise and some prevention for our parents listening as you talked about that scaffolding, I love that concept that you were not even aware of how much we've been bubble gumming and padding and putting mud on the
mhm.
cracks of the dam, let's say. What are the major things that you've learned now running a program that you could send to our listeners of ways they can begin to support? Of course, they can't contrive that their young adult has a community, has friends, but what can they do that they can start peeling back a little bit and beginning to try to agitate that process for young people or teens, even on the earlier side?
I think there's so many young people that can't even make a phone call. Like
Mm.
they just avoid phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
For example, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
want to find out I want to see if they've got this certain Pokemon card at the game store. Like, once you call them and find out they got the card you're looking
Mm-hmm.
for, oh, I don't want to, I
Mm-hmm.
can't call them. I can't call them. Like, okay, I guess you don't want that card enough then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Make a phone call or going out to the restaurant and ordering. Like, so many kids can't even order food. And I'm like, okay, we'll hang out. I mean, we'll wait till you're ready. If you like, the waitress will come back and just like being okay with that. You don't need to pull your
Yes.
kid out of like the
Yeah.
discomfort of ordering food, making a phone call, or
Right.
talking to somebody in public. And I just like pull back. I just like, okay. And the thing is, like, it's really fascinating how like parents don't allow opportunities to occur. Like when you like if I okay like the Pokemon or the restaurant situation or wanting something where we kind of remove the opportunity for the kid to do
Mm-hmm.
those things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we see our kids flailing and awkward, and that's super uncomfortable as a parent. So we just want to rush in and go, okay, yeah, they actually want grilled cheese and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so just like allowing, it starts developmental. Like you got to start doing, like, I'm a firm believer, you can't, like, from 0 to 2 you cannot spoil like an infant. It's impossible.
Sure.
You
Sure.
want to feed their
Sure.
needs. Yeah, they're crying.
Sure.
Yeah, you want to create that secure base of like
Yes.
safety,
Yes.
trust. You got a solid
Yes.
foundation. The brain grows the
Yeah.
most between 0 to 2, so there's good solid
Yeah.
neurodevelopment with you as
Yeah.
attachment figure. But then once you get into toddler, like, then that's when you start pulling it back and you allow them to kind of like figure that. It starts early, and a lot of times it gets more difficult as their patterns can become more ingrained and they get older and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But it starts really
Mm-hmm.
early with allowing opportunities to occur where, yeah, like the Pokemon and the restaurant situation.
That's such, I love it. And the thing that I talk a lot about on this podcast, of course, and of course to the families is so many of these brilliant strategies that are actually based on creating neuroplasticity and healthy cognitive development, healthy social emotional development are free and aren't fancy and aren't sexy
Mm-hmm.
and you don't need an app for it. Like literally handing the phone right to your kid. This happened last year when our son was applying for jobs. You know, the whole thing, there was like trepidation and anticipatory anxiety around the phone call. We kind of did a quick little role play, and it was like, boom, you're on it. And he had to fail forward. And it was one time he was like, "Hi, I want a job," pretty much, like click almost. I'm like, I was like, "What?" And I was like,
Mhm.
"Dude, you got to do it again." He's like, "I'm not doing it again." I said, "I swear to God, like," and people on this podcast know, like, I have a Thor hammer and my word is my bond. I was like, seriously, if you don't call again, like there's going to be like some ramification here that you're not going to be, it's going to be more uncomfortable than not calling. So it was like, "Hey, hi, did I want a job? Here's my name." And then it hangs up. And I was like, "Dude, you forgot your phone number. Like, I can't contact you." I'm like, "You're calling again." And it was this whole thing. And he had to call like 3, 4 times. But the coolest thing about it was it actually endeared the employer to him, because it
Mhm.
showed resiliency of like 4 or 5 times and calling back and having to
Mhm.
fail forward and be like,
Mhm.
"Yes, it's me again. I'm a moron. I forgot my, to give you my cell phone." Da, da, da. So I love that. And the piece around, 0 to 2, and then what do you do, toddler? I think that's so hard for parents, is that code switching, is to toggle. Hey, this was adaptive here, this role. I flew at this altitude. Now you're telling
Mhm.
me, what, Jack guy, Tom guy, you're telling me you got to like, I got to fly a little bit higher and allow a little bit of them to kind of own their own circle of control and fail forward. That's so difficult. And then, especially if you have 2, 3, 4 children, right, where you're now having to have situational awareness of the developmental age, and then what's your role vis-a-vis this child in this moment. That's why parenting is the hardest freaking job in the world. However, what you're saying, which I love, is not just take this like monolithic approach that's like, I do everything, right? And then boom, now
Mhm.
we have to send this kid off to college, and guess what? Now they're struggling, right? So
And
I think that, yeah, constant evaluation process is so important.
and think about the big picture always. I'll give you an example where here we had a young adult that got a job and he bit off way too much he can chew, and it was a really overwhelming job. It was it was just a very high paced job. Didn't really match up probably to his
Mm-hmm.
processing speed and working
Mm-hmm.
memory capacity,
Mm-hmm.
and he was failing at it. And so
Mm-hmm.
like he just wanted to like just ghost the job, just not show up. And that just like that really grates against the parents' values around
Mm-hmm.
properly
Mm-hmm.
quitting and
Mm-hmm.
this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
And like, and so the thing is, a lot of times, like the parent like wrote the actual resignation letter, and of course it was a good outcome. He left on a good note. However, it's like what happens is parents chase the immediate outcome and they don't think about the big picture. Sometimes you got to
Sure.
lose the battle to win the war. You got to lose the outcome to
Mm-hmm.
win the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
So, like in your
Mm-hmm.
situation, you could have micromanaged it a lot more and like jumped on the phone. And, oh, hey, by the way, my
Mm-hmm.
son's number is this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so the
Mm-hmm.
key is
Mm-hmm.
that you can really control that outcome for his job, but you're not but what's the big picture? You're
Yeah,
not just thinking about like that job at that moment. You are thinking about him learning how to get jobs in general. So
totally.
let's say the employer on the other end was like thought he was like incompetent,
Sure.
and that's just a reality. He lost that opportunity.
Yeah.
But what did your
Yeah.
son learn through that process? And the key is the parents
Totally.
are always trying. The issues are trying to control the immediate outcome and don't think about the big outcome. That's the thing that you have to make
Absolutely.
that switch.
Absolutely. And especially, and like you hear this expression for neurodivergent people, right? They can't see the forest for the tree, or they can only see the tree, not the forest. Parents are the same. Like your point is brilliant, that they're not looking at the ROI and how this compounds over time. They're looking, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, at the immediacy, when in fact, you know, as you know, with anything, how hard is it to change a habit, right? That's only been, let's say you've been doing a habit for 30 days. It's very hard to change the habit 30 days later. Never mind 13 years later, right? Never mind 4, 5, 6 years later. So that's so important to kind of pull back and put on a wider lens and say, okay, so do I really want my loved one to not be able to launch, not be able to initiate, right, a friendship, not be able to initiate a conversation, not be able to advocate for a raise? And I think that's why we're seeing so much of this imposter syndrome, again, because, and I know we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about friendships, but there's imposter syndrome there too, because there are people that are more innately, organically, whether they're an extrovert, whether they didn't have as much scaffolding, their families allowed them to fail forward early on, whatever it is. And there's so many young people that I work with that are living vicariously through that person, and then again picking up the shame stick, and they're coming up with basically, the I suck narrative. And I always talk about, everything is not a is a two-way decision, aside from cutting off your head, pretty much is a one-way decision. And so this idea of trying something, and you join the running club and you don't love it, so then cool, you get out of it, and then you go and you try the next thing, or you take
Mhm.
this job, or there also is this weird thing where I have to be perfect right now so I can't start. And then since I'm not also perfect and don't have the Lambo, and I'm not, running off with said amazing, super hot, social support group, at Ibiza at some amazing, rave, I suck. So how do you help young people kind of just simply take that first action step and create small wins that then could create big wins? How do you empower them to just even begin the process? Because it can be so overwhelming, especially, again, you look at social media, and my life looks like shit compared to, like, like
Mhm.
everything looks amazing on Instagram. How do you help someone kind of just break that down?
I think I'm. It's important when you're working with like people and kids is thinking developmentally, and you talk about this imposter syndrome. I mean, it's really based on this curated kind of like perception of ourselves online and curated versions of every people, and it's so crucial that kids do not have access to social media until they've gone through puberty. And so it's really important for
Mm-hmm.
you as a parent to be very attuned to when your kid is going through puberty. And that's different for every kid. It's because during different developmental periods where your brain is kind of like growing at a hyper rated speed. So we talked about 0 to 2. So it's impossible to spoil a 1 year old. So you want to dive in deep as a parent to develop
Mm-hmm.
those secure
Mm-hmm.
attachment 0 to 2, because that's where the brain is growing the
Mm-hmm.
most. You're pairing up safety with brain growing the most. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
pair up social media when the brain is growing, and it's like we're pouring hormones on the brain. We're making the brain
Mm-hmm.
really active right now.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it's happening during puberty, it's going to stick. And so we don't want this
Mm-hmm.
concept of social media and the way social media plays out, like before puberty or why it's going puberty. And then post, it seemed like it's interesting. Kids can get through puberty without a smartphone. It seems like their perception of reality is a lot more effective and less delusional. I agree with you. So this concept of like being imposter syndrome, I think it really goes back to this idea of I can't be I have to be perfect. I got to be really pristine, curated, and
Mm-hmm.
and so that's not how the
Mm-hmm.
world works. Is that being a kid, being awkward, having two left feet, trying to ask a girl to dance or
Mm-hmm.
trying to dance in front of
Mm-hmm.
somebody. It's impossible to be perfect. And so they have these expectations. I gotta look really good all the time. So there's no vulnerability in being imperfect or being messy. And so there's no safety in
Yeah.
being messy. And
Yeah.
so because if I'm messy, like I'm going to be canceled, or it's like crazy. Like for example, where a
Mm-hmm.
kid
Mm-hmm.
like thinks a girl, like he likes a girl and he thinks the girl likes him, and he maybe like puts his hand on, like maybe tries to hold hands with her, and she's like, what the hell are you doing? I don't like you. And then you just
Mm-hmm.
sexually assaulted me. You sexually assaulted me by
Mm-hmm.
trying to hold my hand. That's not sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
That's a poor
Mm-hmm.
sexual advance. Of course we want the girl to say no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not cool with that. That's
Of
healthy.
course.
Hold the
Yeah.
boundary, but you're not
Yeah.
getting salt somebody. So it's this idea of like there's just
Mm-hmm.
no room for messiness. There's like if I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
dance with two left feet, I'm going to be canceled. And so why the
Mm-hmm.
hell would I want to stick my neck out there?
Sure, I agree. Yeah, I think it is a very. I go back again to that two-way decision. It feels like everything is so zero-sum analysis, right? I try this, I fail. Now it's a negative. I'm a -1. Hence, the process is not even zero. It's even probably worse than that. Whereas it used to be in the past that you're okay with chasing no. You're okay with, right, having stacking up a few negatives, if you will, as in L's, which L's, by the way, is just data. I say that all the time. Like failure is just data. Like, and I think of even my kids play soccer at a high level, and these are things that were born. These were investments in the past years ago. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I used to coach a team, and we started in Division 3 in the New England Club League, and we won every game. And we moved up to Division 1. We lost every game, and I knew we were going to lose every game. And I told the families, if you're here for results, like there's the door. This is a long-term project that I need your buy-in, and we're going to teach these kids how to play soccer the right way, which means they're going to make a million mistakes. And the right way means that they're not just kicking it up the park; they're actually playing right, moving together, moving from the. I won't get too. This is me getting in the weeds about soccer. I love soccer, but basically they're playing a beautiful style of soccer where they're moving the ball, right? And that's hard when you're 9 years old and another team is pressing you, and you're in the defensive third, close to your goal, and you have to problem solve with your teammates. You're not just going to kick it and panic. That's really hard because guess what? Someone's going to pick the ball off your foot, and then you're going to give up a goal, or you're going to create an own goal because you make a mistake. We play the ball. We used to play the ball back to our goalie. So many times our goalie would whiff the ball, would go in the net, and the kids would have immediate shame. But they were buoyed enough by the safety of myself and the culture we created, the coach and the parents, to say this is a long-term project. This is okay. We're going to fail big. We're going to fail early, and then we're going to win later on. And I agree with you that right now it feels so right, wrong, life or death, in or out. It is a very rigid, it feels almost borderline-y in terms of this kind of you're idealized or devalued. It feels very also black and white. There's not a lot of gray right now or middle. And I think that's a good point. Why would someone stick their neck out, right? So I think that comes back to us as parents. We have to empower our kids to say, hey, it's a bet. We're gonna bet that this failure now, this pain, this shame, this anxiety, this awkwardness, this discomfort is worth the payoff down the line. You may not get it immediately. And then going back to your piece that I love you said about not focusing on the immediate win, but building this process, building this fail forward culture, and then also beginning to remove the scaffolding. I mean, those are game changers for, I think, our listeners. So that's great advice.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
that's huge.
and these concepts apply to neurodiverse kids. It just
Totally.
looks the speed of it and the frequency of it looks differently. And so the thing is that like people I think like or maybe can argue against what we're saying like oh this doesn't apply to my kid because they have autism and the concept applies, just how you apply it is differently.
Sure.
How the
Sure.
meta scaffolding and how you
Yeah.
remove the scaffolding and the timing of removing the scaffolding and the timing takes longer. And you might have to provide more support, but then that moving the support takes longer as you peel away. And I see that like
Yeah.
here daily at Engage, where we have young adults that all have I like the concept neurotype. I want to lean in and look, they all have different
Yes.
neurotypes. Some of them are this, that, and the
Yeah.
other. Some of them are a fast burn, some of them are quick learners, whatever. And so the
Yeah.
reality is that applying that pressure, like allowing that to play out, looks the same for a kid that's ASD, but the way you apply it, the timing of it looks different based on their specific neurotype.
I love neurotype. I mean, my wife and I are completely different neurotypes. So, I mean, the idea of
Mm-hmm.
neurodiverse versus or neurotypical versus neuroatypical is again binary. So, I love that. Everyone is a different neurotype. Everyone has a different learning
Mm-hmm.
style, right? Visual learner versus experiential versus, the list goes on and on. I so appreciate this conversation. I think you've given so much golden nuggets for the audience, and I do want to give you a little bit of time to talk about Engage because it is a fantastic program. I've got thankfully to get out there, and I was blown away by just even the geography. And I will be coming back out. My sciatic is gone, so I can definitely get
Oh,
out and
rad.
do some mountain biking in the spring, which would be amazing. Yeah, but talk a little bit about Engage, why you started it, what does it do, and also I just want to quickly, as I always do, a little PSA for any parent listening out there who is enjoying this and or is thinking, I might need some support as well and a tune-up, please go to the 4peaksparents.com website. You can book a free discovery call with yours truly, and we can explore whether or not the program is the right fit and what will be exactly what you need to help basically go good to great and learn all the tips, tools, and strategies that you need to help your young adult face whatever it is, whether it's mental health, developmental challenges, some of the issues we talked about today. Also, you can sign up for the newsletter on the website as well, which is free. It's all tactical tips, tools, and strategies right to your inbox. But Jack, please talk to us about Engage. And thank you once again for being on the show.
Yeah, Thomas, the invite is always open to come out. I did go to that hot springs that you went to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I started looking at memberships and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
looking at it, it was so
Yeah.
rad. My wife and I went,
Yeah.
and then at the same time, I see a Gen Z kid sitting in a hot spring with his phone. I'm like, bro, like you're missing the whole point. Hey, I hope your phone falls up and goes into the water.
That mountain,
Yeah,
that chocolate
I
mountain in
know.
the backdrop,
Totally.
is
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I was in
Yeah.
a hot spring somewhere else in Utah that's like it is a hole in the ground. There's a kid with a phone next to a weeping mountain that's got red water coming out. It was like, oh my gosh, how mindful can you be? So yeah, it's just sad
Yeah.
that we're like, even in moments that it's like I'm in like 104-degree temperature and it's like totally tapping into my
Yep.
senses, I still have to have a
Yep.
phone in my hand.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, you're always
Yep.
welcome to come out. I love Utah. I love Cedar City. I love our location, and I love the work that we do. And yeah, like we're a young adult transition program, which means that we're providing clinical coaching and mentoring support while our clients are living their lives. And we embrace messiness, we embrace the avoidance, we embrace all the things, all their patterns here. And so our clients are figuring out as they're struggling with individual therapy, with family therapy, with psychiatry, with a nurse, with a dietitian. We have a job placement specialist, we have an academic like placement coordinator, we do neural feedback. And we can be a step down from like short-term programs like hospitals and outdoor therapy programs, and we're stretched. We're definitely a stretch for our clients, and we're stretching them. And so yeah, and so our clients we really lean into their autonomy and their decision and their choice in this process. It was funny. I was on a call with somebody who's like, "Oh, if they don't do this, once you punish them." I'm like, that doesn't work. Like they're honestly, literally, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? You're asking me to punish a
Right.
20-year-old if
Yeah.
they don't show up
Yeah.
to a certain part of our program? And I said,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be pretty simple. We can probably get them to do
Yeah.
something here, but we're looking for
Yeah.
long-term change. We're not short-term, we're longer term.
Right. Right.
We're part of a community that's right next to the college. So we're helping our young adults work on three things: connection, independence, and health. And we're right next to a college. We have Southwest, we have a technical college. And so yeah, we have clients that are ASD. We have clients that struggle with depression, anxiety, but they all struggle with four things: depression, anxiety, executive function and avoidance, and of course, relationships and
Mm-hmm.
social things. So it's actually five. So
Mm-hmm. And I can vouch that it is a fantastic program, and I love the piece you talked about with it's almost like a program within a program. You do a really nice job of being a tailor there and making sure that while yes, you do have a program that is definitely the overlay and is a nice guide, everyone there does a fantastic job of meeting that each and every individual where they're at and helping them to step more fully right into addressing those five things in a very unique and individually tailored way. So thank you so much, Jack. And if anyone is interested in learning more about Engage, what's the best way that they can find out?
yeah, you can find me on engagelifenow.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all my Four Peaks Parents listeners. Please keep listening, and please like, share, and follow if you feel like you're getting value here. And please tell somebody who you know might be struggling as well, and keep on fighting. Hardest job in the world. I see all of you, and stay in the fight and keep growing. And it's worth it. It's always worth it. All right. Take care. Be well. Bye.